Hello! Welcome, everyone, to this amazing virtual internet space of goodness. Yay! I am... I'm so excited. Okay, but for anyone who
Hooray! See, this is how all panels should start. This is how all panels should start.
I said I was going to cry from happiness, and I am. For anyone who doesn't know me, I am Christine. I'm the Programs and Marketing Manager for Loyalty Bookstores. Loyalty is a Black and queer-owned bookstore in DC and in Maryland, and in your living room. Welcome. I am here tonight with two of my favorite authors. So please excuse me for the fangirling, but I'm sure y'all will understand. We are here to celebrate this incredible book, Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. And we are here in conversation with Rin Chupeco. Welcome. So if y'all can just bear with me for some quick housekeeping and some more cheers of happiness. I know you're not here to see me, so just 1 second. Keep chatting. That's what makes it more fun. I love that we have people here from Manila. We have people here from Virginia, Wisconsin, Phoenix. Welcome, welcome. Let's see. Don't be a jerk. This is a jerk-free zone, y'all. Just don't do it, because if you do, I will boot you, and you'll miss the event, and you'll be sad, and like we don't want that. So yeah, just be cool. If you have questions, put them in the Ask a Question link. I already see some questions coming in. That's awesome. We're going to get to them at the end of the event, like the last 15 minutes or so. So go ahead and put them in there. If you don't have a copy of Under the Whispering Door yet, we have signed copies from Loyalty. What? I have 2 copies.
Yes.
One is signed because I got it today. So hit the snag the book button. You can also get TJ's other books. You can get Rin's books, pre-order some upcoming books. And we understand at Loyalty that books are expensive. So if you get it through the library, like get it through an audiobook format, like that's cool too. Support these authors. That's what we care about the most. And then without further ado, let me get to bios and then we will get started. All right. Our author of the hour, TJ Klune, is the New York Times and USA Today bestselling Lambda Literary Award-winning author of The House in the Cerulean Sea, The Extraordinaries, and more. Being queer himself, Klune believes it's important, now more than ever, to have accurate, positive, queer representation in stories. And I love that for us. My little bi heart is very happy. Okay.
Happy Bi Awareness Week.
Yay! Thank you. And our in-convo partner tonight, despite uncanny resemblances to Japanese revenants, Rin Chupeco has always maintained their sense of humor. Raised in Manila, Philippines, they keep 4 pets, a dog, 2 birds, and a husband. Hey-o. They've been a technical writer and a travel blogger, but now make things up for a living. They're the author of The Girl from the Well, The Suffering, The Bone Witch Trilogy, and the 100 Names for Magic Trilogy. Y'all, the talent in this room is just like off the charts. Please join me in an enthusiastic virtual round of applause for Rin and TJ. Welcome.
Yay! Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here. This is wonderful.
Thank you for having me, because I am also a huge fan of your books. Like, I read Cerulean Sea and I was obsessed almost immediately.
Aww.
And then I read the premise for Under the Whispering Door. And as soon as I saw, and if anybody knows who I am, I love ghosts. And as soon as I saw ghosts, ferryman, tea shop, I was like, okay, I want this book. Like, I mean, how did you come up with the idea of, the underworld suddenly having a tea shop and having ghosts in there?
Oh man, it was so, I always knew that I wanted to do something with the idea of death not necessarily the afterlife per se, because I once had this idea of the bureaucracy of the afterlife, and I had never done anything with it. And then a TV show called The Good Place came along and did it much better than I could ever possibly do. The bureaucracy of death and just the mix of philosophy and hope and joy. It was just, I would never be able to attain that level of depth that they did across their 4 seasons of television. And if you have not seen The Good Place, it is one of the happiest, most profound and lovely shows ever. And I've watched it through 3 or 4 times, and I always learn something new from each time I watch it. So when that came out, as sometimes happens, you get ideas and then somebody gets there first, and that's just how it is. And you kind of have to say, okay, well, we'll move along. It wasn't until I read Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol that I saw the idea of Ebenezer Scrooge and how he is a miserly, onerous character at the very beginning until he is visited by the spirits who show him how much of a terrible person he is. How they show him his faults, his fallacies, and at the very end of the book, a flip switches and a switch flips, and he is suddenly a good person, and everything is good in the very end. And it's gorgeously written, and it is a classic for a reason. But I always wondered why there was never the work shown into Scrooge becoming a better person. He's shown his actions, and then all of a sudden he realizes he can't be. But to me, I wanted to see what kind of work that would take. What happens if a man like Scrooge died and was shown all the errors of his life, but nothing, wasn't necessarily in a place to be able to change it? What would he do then? So with that idea of death, I knew I wanted to make some sort of way station, a stopping point, a place of healing and rest. And I think about what brings me calm, what brings me peace, and that's tea. I have tea in the morning, I have tea at night, and if for a little bit, I get to have this little quiet moment for just me and relaxing and to be able to take a breath. And that seemed to fit with this book. And then there's also the fact that tea is one of the most ancient consumed drinks in the world. And right now, as I've said on previously, that tea is the second most consumed drink in the world after water, before beer. Tea is older than coffee, and every culture has their own version, their own stories that go along with tea. So it felt universal to be able to have all these different stories, because going with the concept of grief and death affecting everyone differently, tea affects everyone differently. And so I wanted to combine those two things. And then creating the tea shop itself was always meant to be like a fifth main character of the book, because majority of the book takes place in this tea shop. And if it didn't have life to it, it would have felt very claustrophobic for the reader to spend 400 pages in this one location that didn't have a personality. So I kind of built this up as this mishmash of architectural ideas, because inside is a mishmash of cultural and cultural beliefs and different people from all walks of life. So I wanted the tea shop to feel like it would be the idea of what a way station before we crossed over to the afterlife would look like.
Wow, that is amazing. And it's so fascinating for me, especially because in Asian mythology, like Chinese mythology in particular, which is the culture I grew up with, when you die, people believe that when you die, it's just a continuation of your previous life. Like you're dead, but you're still doing the same things. You're living. It's just you happen to be immortal now, and how you live is really dependent on whether or not the people you left behind love you or miss you. And what they do is they'll start burning things. Like they'll create like little paper chairs, little paper tables, or little paper cars, and then they'll burn them as offering to you. And the belief is that you will acquire these cars. You'll acquire the car, you'll acquire the table and the chairs in your afterlife, because that's the proof that people love you. If you're rich in the afterlife, it's because people are still remember you, and they're still sending you a lot of stuff. And in in another way, when I first heard your description for Under the Whispering Door, I got so much like Studio Ghibli, like it hit me like this sounds so Studio Ghibli, like Spirited Away, like Hayao Miyazaki themed things, because that the movies are always about finding the mundane in the weirdness and sort of trying to find something about it. Like, was that any influence on
Absolutely,
you?
because what I love about, you're right, that it is about finding mundane in the weirdness, but especially in Studio Ghibli movies, it's also about finding comfort in the strange. It's finding a place, Princess Mononoke, Spirited Away, Ponyo, Castle in the Sky, all of them. I've seen everyone multiple times. And just the feeling that I get when I watch them, and it's the story, but it's also the animation with the soft nobody animates food like Studio Ghibli does, and it's the soft curves of the architecture, and I get a certain weightless sense when I watch those movies. It's one of the, especially since I grew up reading Diana Wynne Jones, who wrote Howl's Moving Castle, which they adapted, and there's something about cozy fantasy, even in more I don't want to say adult necessarily, but in more mature stories like Princess Mononoke, there's a sense of wonder about it. And I remember how I felt when I was a kid reading fantasy like Howl's Moving Castle, Diana Wynne Jones. There's that sense of cozy wonder, and we don't get to see a lot of that these days. Not that there's anything wrong with the grim dark fantasy side of things, but I think that we could all still use hopeful fantasy. And I think that that's what Studio Ghibli and Hayao Miyazaki embodies, is that sense. I just realized I said I've seen everyone. I haven't seen the newest one, the one that was computer animated, because I was like, I don't know about that. I missed something about the hand-drawn animation. But that sense of wonder is something that I want to imbue in books like Under the Whispering Door and The House in the Cerulean Sea.
Wow. And it's like, it feels comforting. Like you don't necessarily understand why it feels comforting, but the way they make it seem so domestic and so reassuring, that's the major thing. And with again with Asian culture, like so many people, especially the older generation, the younger generation has been doing a lot better with this. The older generation tends to be very closed off and seemingly emotionless, but we've gotten used to them expressing their love or their care for their children through food. So and I think Hayao Miyazaki really knows this. So when he really takes that particular care when it comes to his food, it hits Asians a very different way. It's like saying, I care about you. That's why I make this food so delicious, because it brings back memories of your parents' house, your mom's cooking, your like that, because that's how a lot of Asian families express themselves, through the food and attentive care to food. So, especially and tea, like the tea shops, we love tea shops. And like the idea of finding comfort in death through tea shops. It's like I vibe with that. I love that so much.
Well, see, and it being in America is such a coffee culture. We have Starbucks on every single corner, and it's weird to say, but we've had a chip on our shoulder about tea since probably the Boston Tea Party and all of that going into the water and all of that. And it's this weird thing. But I remember going to the UK in 2016. We went there for a few weeks just to go through Ireland and Scotland and Great Britain, and go to the hotel rooms, and each hotel room had an electric kettle. And I just remember being so fascinated by that and pleased with that, and just so enthralled by that right when I came home, I bought an electric kettle to make my tea that way. And therefore, now anytime that somebody I know uses their microwave to heat the tea, that's when I have words. Because you can't heat your tea in the microwave. You can't do that. So I think going back and bringing with the tea into it, there's for me, tea has been part of my routine for years, and there's comfort in familiarity, and there is the comfort of sharing tea with others. And just the idea that in this moment, when you're the most vulnerable, when you are confused and angry and scared, the whole gamut of emotions, because these characters are saying they've lost their lives. They're no longer alive anymore. Tea is there. Granted, it's served by the most wonderful people who could exist in a world like this, but tea is there to help bring comfort. It's meant to be a welcoming, and it's meant to be, a chance again to take a breath and just breathe, even though they're ghosts and they can't technically breathe.
I had when you mentioned that microwave water, I had so many bad flashbacks to that. Like the first time I went to the United States for a book tour of my own.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
And I went to I stayed at an Airbnb that was sort of a shared community with a lot. There were several rooms that were interconnected, and I shared with a lot of people at the time, and I saw somebody microwave their water, and it was such a culture shock for me. It was such a, what are you doing? Don't you guys have like a kettle or anything? And then like the next day, I thought that was bad, and then the next day I saw that same guy try to microwave chicken, and I was like, are you sure about this? Why?
America.
I wasn't sure how much time he put in. It was like, it couldn't have been more than 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I was like, it's raw. You cannot do this. You cannot eat chicken raw unless you're a professional, and if you're using the microwave, I'm not sure you are a professional. Why? And I wanted to offer him, like, do you want me to cook this? I know I could cook this for you. I love cooking, and but at the end I figured he might get mad at me. I'm still not used to this was in New York, by the way.
Oh yeah, no, that sounds like it.
And I wasn't used to. I wasn't sure if he was just gonna get mad at me or anything. So I just and I did approach the Airbnb host and asked, "Is this normal?" I said, "Just leave them alone." So I took his advice. So
yeah, but it's weird to to have that kind of a culture shock to come and just, and it, that's what I love about this world, is that we can go to all these places and see all these wonderful things, and then we can see people heating tea in the microwave and just, what are you doing? Don't do that. I love the world. I love people.
Like, have you found anything like something surreal? Like, have you ever visited a place and found something that was such a culture shock to you as well when you first saw it?
Yeah. So we were in the UK, and we were going through one of the things on my bucket list was to go see Stonehenge. That was something that I, for whatever reason, ever since I was a kid, I was fascinated by the idea of Stonehenge. I read everything I could about it. I read all the books. I looked at all the pictures I could see of it, and I got it into my head that I needed to go to Stonehenge. I didn't know why. It's just something that I wanted to do. It's just one of those things that when you're a kid, you find fascinating, you think about over and over again. And it's a pipe dream. It's not something that I ever really thought I could do, because at that point in my life, I had never even been on a plane before. I had never gone anywhere outside of the state that I lived in. And then when we got to the UK, when I finally got a chance to go in 2016, and I got to go to Stonehenge, first, it was a lot smaller than I was expecting. But at the same time, when I got up there, I just felt this sense of awe that I was standing in front of this thing that is just so immense and so culturally impactful and so just a marker of history that it knocked my breath from my chest, because evidence of humanity's imagination and wonder and beauty is around us all over the place. We don't get it. We don't hear about it though, because now on the news, all we hear is about how the world is on fire and about how everyone hates everyone else, and they're, bad things are happening all over the place. And I just, it's a platitude and it's cliche to say we need to stop and smell the roses and whatnot. But I wish that we would spend more time appreciating the differences around us, the differences in cultures and people, and celebrate those differences and celebrate the wonder that is this world, as opposed to hating everyone for it. I don't understand why we can be the way we are, that humans can be at once so precious and wonderful and beautiful, but they can also be so damn cruel and heartless. And I don't know. It just, it's one of those things that it's a question I'll never get answered. Why are people the way they are? And I'll never know that. And I doubt anyone can say with any certainty, but I don't know. I feel like this world could use more hope, and we need to appreciate what we have while we have it. That's the whole point of this book, is what would you do with the time you had left? What would you appreciate? And this is not just advice I'm giving to anybody. This is advice I need to give to myself too, because I go through my life with blinders on. I do, because that's part of my privilege to have that. And I need to open my eyes to the entire world, not just my little bubble. And if I can do that, if I can help to dismantle my own blinders, I hope that maybe others can do the same, and we can just appreciate what we have.
Yeah, I agree absolutely. And I've learned the hard way that, people tend to be angry or tend to hate you because they don't understand you. Like, yeah. There are differences in culture and that sometimes feel conflicting, but instead of trying to understand things better, they just go and decide, I'm always right, so this is how it should be.
Right. So, and I don't know how to get through to those kinds of people. I don't know if we ever will, but you're absolutely correct when you say that there's fear in what people don't understand. But the problem isn't necessarily that fear. The problem is that those people let that fear become all they know and don't take the time to try. They don't even give a chance to try and understand. And that's I think one of the biggest human failings, is that we don't try to understand. And I don't know. I just think that if we took the time to listen to others when they're talking, people from marginalized communities, lifting up marginalized, if we took the time to do that, who knows what we could learn? We could learn all sorts of different things instead of just our little bubbles that we keep wrapped around ourselves like armor.
Exactly. And I think that's also a reason, aside from being so excellently written, why your books are gaining so much traction as well. Because I think somebody in the chat mentioned cozy fantasies, and yeah, it's such a comfort fantasy. It's not just a cozy fantasy; it's a comfort fantasy for me, especially when we're in this whole panini happening right now, and trying to find some kind of light, trying to find some hope that things get better, that things are always going to be. We like hearing that reassurance, and especially when it's so brilliantly portrayed in books like yours. And I can't really say the same things for mine, because mine is mostly people yelling at the system to change, and if you're not going to change the system, we're going to break the system. So
that is just as important, though. That is just as important, though, and it has a different message, but it's just as important. So please keep on doing that, because sometimes cozy and calm and quiet and hope for understanding doesn't work. Sometimes you have to yell to break the system. You have to.
I think we need that balance, though.
Yeah.
Like, we need a balance of those comfort fantasies and fantasies of people yelling at the rich. And
yeah, I absolutely 100% agree with you on that. We need to eat the rich. Yes, absolutely. But go ahead.
No, please. I've been talking a while too.
I just think that this idea of cozy and comfort, it's so weird that I wrote The House in the Cerulean Sea and Under the Whispering Door pre-pandemic. Both those books were written in like 2018, 2019. So I had no idea what was going to lay ahead. All I saw was that, I had this really awesome opportunity with a really cool new publisher, and they were planning all these big things. And then in March of 2020, The House in the Cerulean Sea was ready to come out, and that's when the pandemic just blew up all over the world. And I remember, understanding that was infinitely more important than my book coming out. But I still remember saying, hey, can everybody please read my book? It's out now. I know the world is scary, but please read my book. It's good, I promise. And as it gained traction, as it started to pick up momentum, the thing that I heard the most was that it felt like a hug. It felt like a place where people could just escape to in a time that they really needed it. And now that we're in September of 2021, still in a pandemic, this book, Under the Whispering Door, is a bookend. It is a capstone to The House in the Cerulean Sea, because The House in the Cerulean Sea was a place to feel safe when the world was scary. And Under the Whispering Door is now a place that I hope will allow people to grieve if they need to, because I don't know that we've had the time or the wherewithal to process the grief of what the last 16, 17 months has done to us as a whole, has done to us individually, has done to what our communities, our families. We've lost people, we've lost time, we've lost, a sense of self, because we're all going through this same thing. And to have this book come out and be about grief is just this weird, I don't know. I wish the moment in time wasn't like this, where Under the Whispering Door could be an outlet for grief. I wish that at this time that the world was just fine and that everybody was okay, but it's not. And so to have this book come out when it does right now, it just feels weirdly, prescient almost. It feels like this is the time for a book like this, because I want people to be able to reflect. I want people to be able to know that sometimes it's okay not to be okay. It is okay to be sad. It is okay to be upset. It is okay to be angry, because while some might think that those are useless emotions, they're not, because they are human emotions, and we should be allowed to feel that way without fear of repercussion, without fear of people mocking us. Because let's face it, there are times when I get sad about stuff, and that should be okay as long as I don't let that consume me. And we need to give ourselves permission to grieve, not just big things. We need to give ourselves permission to grieve little things too, because there are big deaths and there are little deaths. And I'm not just talking about the passing of a person or a loved one, a pet, something like that. I'm talking about the little deaths that inflict us in everyday life, little cuts that we get, that we take with a smile on our face, but inside they hurt. We need to allow ourselves to be able to grieve for those moments too. And this book is part of my own grief. This book was something that I had to work through too, because I lost someone I cared for very much. And I grew into a very toxic person, and I didn't know what to do with that, because I never had that sort of grief before. And I was angry, and I was just upset, and I didn't know where to put that. And never, ever, ever, everyone watching, never, ever discount the power of therapy. Please don't ever discount the power of therapy, because therapy is, for me, I'll speak for me, it was absolutely life-changing and necessary. And Under the Whispering Door was part of that therapy process for me. It was part of that grief process. And while no one ever fully really finds closure to grief, because I don't like that word closure, because it implies that there's something cut off. There's a door shut, and that way it can never be opened again. But that's not how grief works. It's a knot that solidifies in your chest, and it will always be there. It may not hurt as much, but every now and then a little crack will appear, and it's okay. It's okay, because even if you have that little crack, that little piece, it reminds you of the joy and the happiness of what you once had. And yes, maybe it's sad that it's not there anymore, and maybe it feels like you're being torn apart at times, but it's okay not to be okay.
it's like learning how to deal with the hurt in order to understand it, but not letting it hurt you any further.
Right.
There's some finding some a little bit of peace with it, but not
Hmm.
forgetting it. Yeah, and I
Right.
mean, I understand. Like speaking as somebody who also lost a family member and a lot of friends
Hmm.
during during everything, because I had a lot of friends who were frontliners.
Hmm.
So, and your book came at a really Sir Leon came at a really right time for me, and really helped me cope with a lot of things. So your book was like a big warm hug for me, and I
No,
really
thank
really
you. That
appreciate
is that
that.
is that is
Yes.
very nice of you to say, and I really appreciate you saying that. And it's I've said this before, but Cerulean, it was that hug. And Whispering Door, it can be whatever you want it to be. It can be a story where you just see a man trying to become a better person, even if he doesn't think he can. Or it can be, something there if you want to reflect on yourself, that if you want to ask yourself the question, what will I do with the time I have left? Or it could be even something more than that. It could be you confronting your own thoughts and ideas about death, or what your faith is, if you believe in some form of afterlife, whether it's a personal, religious, cultural belief. Um, I I'll be honest, I'm not sure necessarily what I believe in. I don't know. And that's when I don't know something, I want to write about it because I want to see if I can try to find answers. But I knew with Under the Whispering Door that I would never be able to write about an afterlife where I would be fully satisfied with, because no matter what, there's always going to be, and even with the way I have it in Under the Whispering Door now, there's always going to be people who disagree with how I have it portrayed. But I tried to sidestep religion because I wanted it to be the idea that we all walk the same path, and we are all, you know, human beings. We're all connected, and we will all find what we believe in. And it wasn't about trying to change anyone's belief. It was all about wanting to know that whatever you believe in, it's okay. It's okay to believe in that, and that is your truth. And this, for me, this was my truth. This was my hope. I hope that when it's my time to go, that I'll be taken to a tea shop, and there's going to be people like Hugo and May and Nelson and Apollo and Wallace who will offer me a cup of tea before leading me up the stairs towards a door. And if that's what happens, then you know what? That is wonderful for me.
That is like such a very Terry Pratchett thing to say, and I love that. like his whole concept, his whole concept of death was like, the death actually lets people decide where they want to go when they die.
Mm-hmm.
And it's completely up to them, and he has no opinions. He just helps them along the way. And I really love that concept because Terry Pratchett was that huge thing for me growing up, and
Yep.
I really believe that he made me a better person, because
Mm-hmm.
I was such like an edgy edgelord teenager growing up. And restarting reading his Discworld books at a
This
very
world,
young
yeah.
age made me start realizing that, hey, I'm not all that. I have a lot more, developing to do. This is not the peak of my character development just because I think I'm cool.
Mm-hmm.
And it really did help define me as an adult.
And isn't that what I love about what Terry Pratchett's belief are, and what you said about that, is how simple it is, how profoundly simple it is. It's not complicated.
Exactly.
There's no, but what about this? What about this? No, it's what you want it to be. And that there's just something so beautifully satisfying about that. I hope that's what it is. I hope that's what he found. And I hope that's what people that we've lost, whose memories will one day bring us happiness again, have that they woke up in a strange place, but it was a place that they felt at peace and at ease, and that they have exactly what they want now that they have time to rest.
Yes. Yes, I so love that. Like the whole idea of, I mean, nobody knows. Nobody knows what happens to you when you
Yeah.
die, because nobody has ever come back to tell
Right.
anybody about that. So, the best thing you could do is be the best version of who you are while you have it, right? like while you're aware of who you are, what you want to do in life, be the best version of it.
Let me ask you a question then, and this is probably like a big one. Why do you think that's so hard for people to be the best version? Why do you think that we are so destructive and we seem to enjoy tearing other people down? I just don't understand what our inherent desire is for self-destruction. I never have, and I don't know if there's ever even a proper answer for that. What do you think? What do you think humans need?
I think in a lot of ways it's like this chicken and egg cycle, because what we believe in has been for the longest time was totally dependent on how we were raised. So if we had parents or we had a community that believed in this certain set of beliefs, we were likely to grow up believing in the same things. And it's only when we become self-aware that some of these things, these customs, these traditions that we grew up believing in could be harmful, not just to us, but especially to other people, we start reevaluating ourselves and figuring out what can we do to make this better? What can we do to make this to be a better version of ourselves? But some people get too reliant on the family, on the community surrounding that culture, and they don't want to get rid of that particular comfort that comes with that community, and that's what makes them stay, even though they might think it could be harmful. They prefer that comfort that comes with their family more. That's why breaking away is so hard. Like, I am a liberal. I think of myself as a liberal, progressive, very queer as well, atheist. And I live in a country that has no divorce laws.
Yeah.
Treats birth control like abort decisions. And, they say they like LGBTQ, but there is no law supporting LGBTQ, and so very Catholic conservative majority. So it's hard to break away from that. It's hard to break away from the community that you grew up with. But when that community is telling you to deny yourself, deny your identity, it feels more freeing. It feels more freeing and more myself to choose to break away from them rather than conform, because conforming is denying like a part of myself in the process. And that's how I did it. That's how I broke away. But other people might not have that same, they might feel like it's safer to conform in a lot of ways. And that's how they protect themselves. Like, I don't want to judge other people because I'm only speaking for myself. But the way I've seen the people around me, especially because I live in some place that's so very conservative, that's what I've noticed for the most part. The community is strong, especially, when you live in Asia. The community has such a hold on you at times that sometimes it feels easier to give up your identity and be with them than to take back your identity and stand alone.
And it comes again with that idea of the fear of the unknown, because you don't know what would happen, and I'm so happy that you were able to find yourself and be who you want to be. But breaking away, that can be scary to do. That can be hard to do as well. I can't imagine the journey that must have been for you to be able to break away and live as your true self. Especially
when you're growing up and the LGBTQ terms are unknown. Like, I didn't know what non-binary was growing up. I didn't know absolutely that that would be me. I would realize that I was non-binary. But growing up, nobody even right now, not a lot of people even know what non-binary is, especially among the older generation. But I am happy to say that the younger generation is kicking ass. Like, even here, they're pushing back. There's more of them now. They're more outspoken. They're more outspoken about being queer and being progressive, and they are pushing back against the old guard, so to speak. So I am very happy to see that happening right now.
Right, and it always brings to mind, which is why I love, and I know you do too, writing YA, because we know that the kids, teenagers, young people, they should get to have the books that we may not have gotten to have when we were their age, and reading and seeing, because I know how it felt for me being queer and having ADHD, not being able to see myself in fiction, not being able to find a character like me, the loudmouth, queer, effeminate kid. And I I know how that feels, to feel like I am nothing. I am what people's worst opinion of me. That is what I am. And so especially within YA, we see this huge push for diverse stories and marginalized voices and authors writing characters and books that are true to themselves, and being able to put those books out to readers for those readers who may have not yet gotten to see themselves in books. And I think that's important to know, that the kids will be all right, because they're the ones that are coming next. And it has to be down with the old guard. And thankfully, you know, I'm trying to say this as politely as possible. Thankfully, the old guard is getting older. so that way we can let the future, which should be one where we are all accepted for who we are, let that come to fruition, because we need that. We have to have that. That's the only way that we're going to be able to move forward.
Also, like before Christine speaks of, right, ADHD represent.
That is how we do. Yay! I love finding new neurodiverse friends. Yes.
Yay! So team. I hate to interrupt this, because this conversation is giving me life, but we have so many great questions, and
awesome. Thank you for everybody for putting in questions.
Yes, thank you everyone. First of all, everyone in the audience has decided, TJ, that you're going to have a tea company called TJ TEA.
Oh my God. Okay, whoever came up with that pun, we're going to have some words, because you know how I feel about puns. Oh my God.
So we've already decided this for you.
Okay. That's totally acceptable.
We need a tea set. Have you thought about making a line of teas? And
well, I need to talk to my merch people now, don't I?
Yes.
So we can see if they can do tea and tea mugs and stuff. Because last night I had, at the thing I was doing with V. Schwab, she had a tea called concubine tea. And I needed to try what that was, and I forgot to ask her what it tasted like. But yes, I would love to have my own line of teas and tea mugs and tea sets. Yes.
Somebody mentioned the tea can be like the house.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
So I feel
I have so many ideas now.
I know. I feel like this, you heard it here first, listeners. I think we need to make this happen. And you have a lot of enthusiastic people. So Tor, if you're listening, let's make this happen. Speaking of the house.
Yes.
Can we see the Under the Whispering Door house model that's on the cover?
So I want to just do this real quick. So this entire cover was done by Chris Sickles, who is Red Nose Studios on his social media. And what I love about being able to talk to people about these covers is, and I try to shout this from the rooftops, because I think Chris is one of the most dynamic creators that we have working today. But all of this is hand built. This entire set, the trees, the lighting, the stag in the background, the house, all of this is real. He built it from the ground up. And if you go onto my Twitter or Chris's Twitter, you'll be able to see a fly through that he does to show you all the bits and parts of it. But after we did the cover, I supported one of his Patreon things that he does for this beautiful set that he's doing, and he sent me the model for the tea shop itself. So you have Hugo's little scooter right there, and you have each floor of the house. It goes all the way around, all the colors and everything. But my favorite part, keep your eyes up here, is that it lights up with a little light on the top floor where the door is supposed to be. And it is my favorite thing that I've ever gotten in terms of from being an author. And this sits on my writing desk right next to my computer, along with this button that I got from the very first person I know of that read The House in the Cerulean Sea outside of anyone from the publisher, who gave me one of Theodore's buttons to be able to keep. And so I hold that right next to the tea shop, because it reminds me how lucky I am to get to do what I do. And I use these things to remind myself never to take any of this for granted, because I am so very lucky to be able to do stuff like this, to be able to talk about what I love, to be able to do what I love, because, you know, not many people get to say that they do what they love for their job. And I get that. And I am incredibly humbled that I get to be here and to do stuff like this, because I've always wanted to be a writer since I was 6 years old. And that I get to do this is just, it still blows my mind. I just don't understand how I get to be here.
You deserve it. You more than deserve it.
Thank you.
You absolutely do. You made me cry again, and it looks like some other people are crying in the audience. So, you know, but it's like happy tears. Okay. Do The House in the Cerulean Sea and Under the Whispering Door take place in the same world? No spoilers, but it seems like there's some Easter eggs that hint at that.
There are, and I don't have a comment at this time because, frankly, it's because I don't really know. I mean, I put in those, if for eagle-eyed readers, you'll find little Easter eggs. And I put those were in the original draft. That was in before even The House in the Cerulean Sea came out, because I always do that with my books. I always put in, there's other Easter eggs in Under the Whispering Door for my other books too, some of my other books. But I remember when my beta readers were reading the book and they sent it back to me, and one of the notes from them was, why we thought that the character of the manager could have been Lucy from House in the Cerulean Sea. And I said, oh my God, that almost could be right. It could almost be like that. But I don't know. I really honestly don't know. And it would be interesting if that happened, because if those kids made a trip to this tea shop, I'm sure chaos would ensue. Right.
Definitely. Speaking of the tea again, so in case I'm not going to do spoilers, but Wallace, his tea has a very specific taste and aroma and everything. Do you know what kind of tea your tea, TJ, would be? Or
yeah, and this is so funny because I want to say it's something super fancy. I want to say it's something like sound very refined and everybody would ooh and ah. But I'm, as V.E. Schwab told me last night, we're basic bitches. So I drink Bigelow black tea. That's this orange spice rind black tea that it's you know, when you're neurodiverse, you find comfort in familiarity, you find comfort in routine, and that specific. I try all kinds of black tea. I've tried every kind of tea that was consumed in the Under the Whispering Door. I tried because I wanted to know what it tasted like, because you need to know what something tastes like if you're going to describe what it tastes like to a character. But I tend to just stick with what makes me happy. And so if I were to ever meet Hugo, I'm sure he would roll his eyes and just pull out a tea bag of Bigelow black tea.
I love it. Rin, do you have a tea that you feel like?
Well, actually, it's going to be a bit weird because we usually just buy like the basic teas in like Chinese herbal tea shops, like nothing, no brands, nothing in particular. But what I personally do is I also dry fruits, like slices of fruits, and then I dry them up, and then I slice them, and then I put them like apples, slices of kiwi, other fruits that I want into the tea, and then let it steep. And then that's my favorite kind of tea.
Did you say you put kiwi?
Yep.
Oh my God, that sounds so good.
Yeah.
Oh.
Most fruit teas, most fruit actually goes well with tea. Like when you steep it in like overnight, brings out like the best flavor for it. So you know, just we're not very particularly picky about the tea itself, because I might be a bit biased because I live in a place where there's so many Chinese tea shops, and you know already when you step in that it smells good. Yeah, this place is gonna be good. So you just get the tea there, then just add the fruits, because I love fruit tea. Like I know that milk tea is kind of popular here, but I can actually drink milk tea because I have a severe lactose intolerance. So fruit tea is my go-to.
Also, it's kind of gross. Sorry for all the British people watching who put the milk in their tea, but just
That's
can't do
okay.
that.
I personally like hibiscus tea.
Mm-hmm.
That's my jam. Okay, a very important question from Rachel. Is Hendrix around today? Can we say hi?
No, he is snoring over there, and if I try to get him over here, it's going to take like 5 minutes, and
Okay.
he will grumble at me. But rest assured that he is snoring at this very moment, and he's doing very happily on one of his 4 beds that I have in my house because this is my child, and he will have comfort.
I love it. Yes. Rachel said, I need to give him some love after Apollo. So just please send Hendrix our collective love.
I will, because Apollo is based on Hendrix. What I love about being an author is I could put my damn dog in a book if I want to.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so for both of you, what author inspired you to want to write? And part 2, what are you currently reading?
Rin, you can go first.
Oh, I already mentioned Terry Pratchett.
Mm-hmm.
So he was the one that inspired me to really be a writer and to also be a better person. But the writer that really pushed me into becoming an actual writer, like gave me that final push to actually start querying, he actually sponsored a writing contest where I live. And I was one of the finalists, and one of the prizes was having dinner with him. So I was telling him, it's so hard to write here in the Philippines. Nobody pays you anything. You can't make a decent living job as a writer for anything here in the Philippines. And he said, you know what? You're a writer, bollocks, all that, go and write. And that was like that final push, and that was Neil Gaiman. So
yes.
Yay!
Big
wow,
big,
you know.
That is amazing.
That's so cool.
When Neil Gaiman tells you to do something, you do it.
You do it.
Yeah.
No questions asked.
Now you're gonna make me cry, Rin.
No.
Oh my gosh.
Neil Gaiman is a delight of a human being, and we should be so very lucky if he's around for many, 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 many more years.
Absolutely.
To come.
And right now the book I'm reading is Never Have I Ever by Isabel Yap. It's a set of collection of short stories, and they're so good. They're so good. Also a Filipino writer.
Mm-hmm.
So
I have that. I haven't read it yet, but I'm very excited to pick it up.
I grew up. I talked about Diana Wynne Jones, but I also grew up reading Wilson Rawls. And my favorite author of all time, Stephen King. I should not have been reading him when I was 11 or 12 years old, which explains a lot about who I am today as a person. But I will read everything that man writes. The fact that he is in his 70s and still releasing 2 books a year or so is just profound. And I can only hope that when I get to be his age, I will still be as prolific. But what I'm reading right now, I just started it, is My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. Because last year, I came across a book cover before it was out that was black with deer antlers. And it was called The Only Good Indians. And I had never read Stephen Graham Jones before. And all I knew was that it was horror. And I love horror as a genre. So I read The Only Good Indians, and it was, I have nobody aside from Stephen King has been able to scare me as much in a book. He is a dynamic writer. He is a necessary writer. And I hope that everyone just reads his books. If you can, if you're okay with reading not gory horror, but very creepy, wonderfully written horror from marginalized voice, his books are just, his prose is dynamic. And My Heart is a Chainsaw, I'm like 15% into it right now. It's a book, his take on the slasher genre, and it's incredible. He's just an amazing author, and I expect huge, big, wonderful things from him for the rest of his career.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Stephen King was the first adult book I read, and I was 7 years old, and I got
what?
I did not understand anything.
Do you remember
Pet
what book?
Cemetery.
Oh my God, that's the scariest one.
I thought it was about the cat. Okay? I thought it was about the cat because the cover had the cat on it, and it was an unusual looking cat. But I thought, okay, maybe he just needs love or whatever. And I started reading it, and I couldn't understand it. I went to my dad and asked him what to help me understand the stuff, and he got mad at me because I was reading it.
That to this day, that book will unnerve me no matter how many times I've read it. It is a scary. I remember Stephen King saying about that book too when he was writing it. He thought, there's no way anybody will ever publish this. It's too dark. It's too grim. Nothing good happens to anyone in that book. And to read that at age 7, holy crap, dude, that is crazy.
It is my favorite Stephen King book. It is my favorite Stephen King book.
No, because that must have just left an indelible mark on you too, because Church the cat. I know what cover you're probably talking about too, and I just sitting here thinking all you need is some love.
Oh my god!
I was very naive as a child, so
well, not after reading that book.
Oh wow! Okay, we are starting to run out of time, but we'll try to get a couple more.
Can I do one thing real quick?
Absolutely.
In the chat? Cecile asked, Rin, were you talking about the anthology of stories Neil sponsored?
Yes,
that's hard to track down now.
It was published, I believe, only locally here in the Philippines. So I don't think you'll be able to find a lot outside of the Philippines if you happen to be looking for it. But even here, it's been it's been a long time since that writing contest happened, like 2014. No, earlier than that, like 2008, I think, because that was before I started querying.
Mm-hmm.
So that it was around that time, 2008, 2007, I think. I'm not sure, but it's been a very long time for that.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, exactly. 2007, 2008.
Okay. Okay. First of all, I just have to mention, I brought this up in the green room earlier. So I saw someone talking on Twitter once about like wanting a whole side series about Chauncey solving mysteries. Like Nancy Drew like series of books with Chauncey like solving mysteries at the.
Hey, could you imagine him holding a magnifying glass up to his eye, like holding it above his head so he can look at it through his eye, rather than bringing his eye down on the stock? He's holding it up there. Yeah.
Like, can we please have this happen? And I'm curious if there's anything else, like, you know, that you just, even if it's like never going to come to fruition, because I know everyone asks you about sequels, but like, is there some kind of world where there's a side story with one of the characters that you think would be fun, or you want to see like?
And I know that there are people from my publisher probably watching right now too, going, "Oh, what's he going to say right here?" I'm going to put this as diplomatically as possible. I love spending time with characters, but when I finish with a book, the characters usually end up going back to sleep. You know, they go back. I'm done. I've told their story. It's like with Under the Whispering Door. I loved every moment I got to spend with those characters, but I know I'm never going to write a sequel to this book with these characters, because this is the story I wanted to tell, and I don't think I need to do any more with it. So those voices have quieted down. That being said, the House in the Cerulean Sea characters are always talking to me. So who knows what could happen one day, what form that would be in or whatnot. But I will say that I think about David a lot, the Yeti that was mentioned at the very, very end, and what kind of reception he would have upon arrival on the island. I know that he would be loved, but what is his thing? What is his existence like, and what is his story? What would he bring to the table? So who knows what could happen?
Who knows? If
Don't get mad at me, my publisher.
That's okay. That's okay. No pressure. If anyone wants to write fan fiction around Chauncey as a bellhop, please let me know.
They were talking the event yesterday or the day before. There were people in the chat posting links to House in the Cerulean Sea fan fiction that people are writing on Archive of Our Own. I don't read my own fan fiction based on my own work because I want it to be separate, from that. But just the fact that it exists just brings me so much happiness that people love these characters so much that they want to spend more time with that. So if fan fiction is your thing, you have my full permission to write fan fiction on my books, all you want. That is absolutely something you can do. Love it. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So we talked about the Studio Ghibli mythology, creepy child. Okay, so this person, Angela, says they love the creepy child god aspects of the manager. Mm-hmm. Did you know what you wanted for that character from the beginning, and how did you develop that antagonist? I did, and I think sometimes I kind of flip flop on the word antagonist describing the manager, but that's essentially what he is. Even though his page time is limited, he does have he is there to antagonize, and that's what his job. As he says to Wallace, he manages. That's why he's called the manager. And we know how how in the case of if you think about extremely upper management in the House in the Cerulean Sea, I won't say that they're one and the same, but the manager almost felt like an extreme apocalyptic extension of that. I knew always that the manager was going to take the form of a stag and the form of a child, because embodying this cosmic being in the body of a child just creates, just like the tea house itself, it's just off enough to almost be eerie, to be maybe slightly uncomfortable, and to hear the words of the universe out of the mouth of a child. To me, that's chilling. It seems very chilling, especially when he loses the facade of, not to get too much into spoilers, but when he gets too much into the facade, or when he loses the facade of the innocent child and is, a more hardened person, that chills me. And that's very scary. And the idea of somebody like that being in charge. And, you think of God, Western idea of God is a white man in a white robe with a white beard coming down. And that's just remove all of that. And it's not even that he is God. He is just this fascinating unknown, this part of this existence and this balance that has existed since the smallest living thing that's ever existed. And I love the idea of that coming from a child, because it's just off enough to make it scary. And while this book isn't horror, there can be some scary elements to it between that and certain other individuals that are in the book. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh my God, we're running out of time. Okay, real quick. What's next for both of you that you're able to talk about or want to talk about with us? I want Rin to go first, because I hope she's going to talk about what we were talking about beforehand.
Well, okay. First of all, Wicked As You Wish, my YA book actually came out last year, 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic, and it sucked. And but the paperbacks are coming out 2020 next month, actually October 1, and it's gonna have a new cover. It's gonna finally have a Filipina teenage girl on the cover, and I really love that. Awesome. It's my first book with a Filipina teen on the cover. Actually, so I'm very happy. Yay. There are so many other books that I cannot say yet, because some have a big franchise attached to it, and I can't say anything until they give me the go ahead. Yeah. My adult debut book coming out 2023 is what they were saying. It's a vampire gothic fantasy, and it's going to be a throuple between a very himbo vampire hunter and two royal vampires a royal vampire couple who basically found him in the trash and then took him in. So that's the basic description that I can give as of now.
That should be enough to get everybody to buy it. That should be enough. Yes. I would pre-order it right now if it's out, because again, himbo vampire hunter and thruple. with vampire. That's
like
that is the best book ever written already.
Right?
It's the best book ever written. You will get all of the awards for this
Yep.
book. And I will
We
be
will
first
be
in line
back
to buy
here
it. Yep.
doing an event.
I want to moderate. I want to host.
Absolutely.
So that way
I will
read
let
it.
you know.
That is wonderful.
I feel a little bad like saying it actually, because up to this point everything has been so nice and wholesome, and my book is not. So I apologize.
No, you don't apologize. You don't
We're
apologize for
talking
that.
about cozy fantasies and
No,
warm hugs. And
you don't get to. You don't have to apologize for that in any way, shape, or form, because that is awesome what you were doing,
so
and
awesome.
I can't wait for it.
Absolutely.
I have. Oh, geez, what can I talk about? I have Extraordinaries 3 come out next summer, which is the conclusion of the Extraordinaries trilogy. Big things will happen, and secrets will be revealed, and there will be way more teenage awkwardness that will result in very strange ways. And then next fall is something that I am so extremely excited for. We had The House in the Cerulean Sea. We had Under the Whispering Door. This next book is the third and final book in what I call my unofficial kindness trilogy. Unofficial because they're not necessarily related and not necessarily set in the same universe. But next fall, I have a queer retelling of Carlo Collodi's Pinocchio. And it is whereas The House in the Cerulean Sea took place on the island, Under the Whispering Door got even smaller and takes place in a tea shop. This book is a big, huge quest, a big adventure, and I am so very, very excited to be able to talk about that next year.
That sounds amazing. I cannot wait to read all of these books. We have a lot of very exciting programming happening at Loyalty, because I need to have both of you here for all of this. Okay, we're like totally over time. So to wrap up, I'm curious, obviously books bring a lot of joy into my life, your lives, our readers' lives in the audience. And I'm curious what's something big or small that's bringing some joy into your life right now.
Rin, go ahead.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
That's okay.
My audio blanked out for a bit.
I'm something that's bringing joy into your life right now, big or small.
Well, I've been stuck at home for the better part of almost 2 years now, because in the Philippines we keep having lockdowns. Nobody's allowed to go out unless you need to go for groceries and stuff like that. And we just came out of just another lockdown recently, and there's a lot of mandates, a lot of it contradicting. And we don't know what to do, what's going on, what's up with this weird government. And I think I found the most solace really just being with my family a lot longer. And my kids are. It's been 2 years. I've been with them every day, almost pretty much every day for 2 years, like the whole day, 24/7, and their eyes just still light up every time they wake up and they see me. And that's something I kind of cherish. And I'm very, very grateful that they're healthy, they're happy in spite of everything. And that's one of the thoughts that I want to cling to.
That is awesome. Mine is small. It's in where I'm at right now. It's turning into fall. The temperatures are dropping. It's getting colder, and the leaves are changing. And today I went on a 3-hour walk with my dog, just me and him in the middle of the woods, nobody else around. And I was just able to be happy with what I have. And it's felt like it's been a long time that I've felt that way. And again, I know how lucky I am to get to be where I'm at and get to do the things that I do. And I never take that for granted. But sometimes I forget that I just need to breathe for myself. And today I got to do that, and that brought me some happiness.
I love that. Thank you both for sharing. Thank you so much to the audience for being here. TJ, Rin, when I talk about your books, TJ, I say if everyone reads soon to be Kindness trilogy, I think this world would be a much kinder place. And
thank you. That is very kind of you to say.
Yeah, and I completely believe it, and it's true story. When I told Hannah, the owner of Loyalty Bookstores, that we were doing this event, she said, "Well, you can retire now."
No, but if you do that, I don't get to come back. So you have to.
Going to, but it really is an honor to have both of you here with us tonight. And seriously, to the audience, please hit the Snag the Book button. You can get Rin and TJ's books, pre-order some of the ones coming up.
Do you guys have signed copies?
We do have some signed copies still in the store. So you can get signed copies, put a little note in the checkout, and we'll make sure that we get you a signed one.
Thank you, Rin, for being here and doing this with me. I really appreciate that you took the time to do this. I am so honored that you're here. And to Loyalty Books, thank you for hosting this. This is such a delight that we're able to come together with people all over the world to be able to talk about the things that we love the most. And I think that we sometimes forget that we need to allow ourselves to have moments like this where we can just be happy for a little bit.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me as well. And thank you so much for your books. Such a comfort to me.
Thanks.
All right, everyone. Stay hydrated and take care of yourself. Get some rest and have a great night, everyone.